Alright, would you believe me if I told you that your ancestors used to pack into a tiny tent, chuck a big handful of cannabis onto a pile of red-hot stones, and just sit there getting completely stoned out of their minds, on purpose, every single day? Picture this, it's freezing outside, the tent's sealed up tight, and the air inside is so thick with smoke you can barely see the person next to you, and nobody is leaving. They just sit in it, breathing it in until they start howling with joy. And no, I'm not making this up. A Greek historian named Herodotus put this exact scene on record 2,400 years ago when writing about a people called the Scythians. Your ancestors basically invented the hotbox thousands of years before anyone even had a word for it. But here's the part nobody tells you. That smoky tent wasn't the beginning, not even close, and those Scythians weren't doing it to party. Almost nobody back then was. The real reason humans did this, the reason the same strange habit shows up in cultures that had never even heard of each other, comes down to something hidden inside your own body right now, whether you've ever touched the stuff in your life or not. So keep that in the back of your head, because by the end of this video, we're gonna flip how you see this whole thing. First though, you need to see just how far back this actually goes. You've got to leave the Scythians behind, because humans were already tangled up with this plant thousands of years before them. I mean, people and cannabis have been hanging around together for about 10,000 years, way over in East Asia. And here's the funny thing, at first nobody was getting high at all. They grew it for the seeds, which are genuinely solid food, and for the fibers, which you can twist into rope and weave into cloth. Practical stuff, boring, useful, keep you alive stuff. But somewhere along the way, somebody ended up sitting a little too close to a fire that happened to have this plant burning in it, and the air changed, their head changed. Whoever was breathing that smoke felt something they'd never felt before, with no word for it and no way to explain it. Just a slow, strange shift, like the inside of their skull had quietly rearranged itself while they weren't paying attention, and the only thing they knew for sure was that the fire did it, and they wanted it to happen again. That confused little moment next to some random fire 10,000 years ago is where a habit our entire species still hasn't shaken actually begins. Now for a long stretch, getting high was probably just an accident waiting at every campfire. But the oldest, rock-solid proof of people doing it on purpose? That takes us up into the mountains of western China, a burial site called Jirzankal right around 2,500 years ago. Archaeologists there dug up wooden bowls, basically little portable fire pits packed with stones that had been heated to scorching temperatures, and the chemical residue burnt into those stones was THC, not hemp for rope, not seeds for eating, but the actual compound that gets you high, from a strain that was unusually loaded with it. And the team that published this back in 2019, they called it ritual fumigation, which is honestly just the polite academic way of saying a bunch of people deliberately filled a tomb with cannabis smoke. And the Scythians and the Chinese were nowhere near alone in this. In ancient India, a cannabis drink shows up in their sacred text as a literal gift from the gods. Over in Egypt, cannabis pollen has turned up on the mummies themselves, including Ramesses the Great. And in ancient Greece, it shows up in the doctor's writing as a medicine. Different continents, different languages, people who literally could not have compared notes, and every single one of them looked at this plant and landed on the exact same thing. This one is not ordinary. This one does something to the mind, something worth building a whole ritual around, which leaves one enormous question just hanging there in the smoke. Why? Why did all these separate people, scattered right across the planet, independently decide that this one plant was sacred? And here's the answer that I promised you, the one that flips the whole thing. It was never really about the plant, it was about you. Your body came pre-installed for this. So all through your brain and your body, there's this thing called the endocannabinoid system, a whole network of tiny receptors that lock onto the exact compounds in cannabis. And here's the genuinely strange part. Those receptors didn't show up because humans started smoking. They were already there, long before anyone lit a single thing, quietly helping run your mood, your memory, your sense of pain, your appetite every single day of your life. Your body even brews its own versions of these compounds, completely on its own. So cannabis never invented some brand new feeling and bolted it onto your brain. It just slid neatly into a system that was already up and running inside you. Your body had built the lock long before the plant ever turned up holding the key. And that is exactly why this happened everywhere, to everyone, all at once with nobody comparing notes. It was never humans stumbling onto a magic plant. It was a plant stumbling onto a door that every single human being has been quietly carrying around this entire time, without the faintest idea it was even there. So now actually put yourself there. You're alive 10,000 years ago. There's no medicine, no explanation for why the people you love get sick and die. No reason given for the pain, the grief, or the bone-deep terror of a winter that might not let you see spring. The world is loud and brutal and makes no sense whatsoever. And then one night, sitting by that fire, the noise in your head finally goes quiet. The cold stops biting so hard. Your mind drifts somewhere it has genuinely never been. Now be honest with yourself. In a world with zero science and zero answers, what would you call that? You wouldn't call it a buzz. You'd call it sacred. And that's exactly what they did. They weren't getting high to feel good. They were getting high to reach something. The smoke at the graveside was a way to sit with the dead and send them off. The plants in the healer's kit were medicine, used to work out what was wrong with you and try to fix it. And when the whole group breathed that smoke together, around one fire, something else happened. They trusted each other a little more. They felt like one thing instead of many separate, frightened people. In a world where being thrown out of the group basically meant death, that shared experience wasn't a party, it was the glue holding the whole tribe together. For almost all of human history, this stuff was the original church, the original pharmacy, and the original social network, welded into one single thing, and the person who knew how to use it wasn't the village burnout. He was the one human in the entire group who could supposedly talk to the other side, and people would travel for days just to reach him. The high was never the point, it was the doorway. Which brings us all the way back to you, and whatever it is you reach for to take the edge off. A scientist named Ronald Siegel spent something like 20 years chasing one single question, why living things keep going so far out of their way to change how they feel, and what he landed on was bigger than humans, which is proper wild. He argued that the urge to alter your own mind isn't a flaw, or a weakness, or some modern rot setting in. It's a basic drive sitting right alongside hunger, thirst, and sex. A fourth drive, wired in so deep that even animals do it. I mean, there are reindeer in Siberia that go out and hunt down a specific mind-altering mushroom on purpose, and they are not being subtle about it. If the pull reaches that far down, it was never really yours to invent in the first place. So that coffee you needed this morning, the drink waiting for you later, the gummy before bed, none of it makes you broken and none of it makes you new. It's the same brain, the same receptors, the same itch our species has been scratching since long before we built a single thing worth remembering. The only thing that's actually changed is the reason. Your ancestors filled a tent with smoke to speak to their dead and find their gods. Most of us just want to get through a Tuesday, but it's the exact same drive, the exact same ancient need to step outside your own head for a minute. The only real difference is the word they use for it. Your ancestors didn't call it getting high, they just called it praying.